Welcome back to Cambodia Business Week. We're back on the radio and we're back on social media. It's great to have our second guest, Christopher Peter Lee.
Yes.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Welcome to the show. We're going to talk a little bit about, I guess, training and coaching today.
Yes.
Which is your specialty.
Yes.
Besides being an author.
Thank you.
And besides fishing.
Yes.
A lot of things. All right, let's start with the company which you found.
Yes.
And you run, or you're the principal. It's HEDC.
Yes, international.
International.
Yes.
Sorry. Tell us a bit about this company.
Well, it is not a company. It is an NGO that I founded in 1999, I guess. Yes. The reason for that is because during that time I've been working with the Australian project and been working with UNDP, and it was very difficult to find a training institute or training organization that fill our need. So we decided to develop this HEDC International in order to, one is to fill our own need, but the other thing is perhaps to, I'm being a little bit arrogant here, is by giving example to the rest of them, how to conduct training to satisfy the need of the clients, of the organization. So that's how the organization was developed. It is called HEDC International. HEDC is Human-Earth Development Center. The reason why -Earth rather than human and earth, it is because we believe we cannot continue developing the human and leaving the earth behind, or as an afterthought, right? And I believe the reason for the problem that we have right now regarding the earth crisis, is because we tend to focus too much on the human and without paying enough attention to the earth.
Yes. Okay. So tell us a bit how you go through your training and the curriculum you offer,
right,
and what you're doing here in Cambodia.
Initially, I came to Cambodia only as a backstop. The person who was supposed to do the advisor was unable to do the job, so I was asked to just come in to backstop for a while. And so 3 months become 1 year, and 1 year become 21 years.
So it's not by purpose today. We've had 2 people on that said that today, but our previous guest also came to visit his family and ended up to be here 20 years.
Yes.
How did this happen to you, that you came to do a short-term job and ended up being here 20 years?
I fall in love with Cambodia and the Cambodian people, and then I see great potential here, especially with the young people. And the first thing I noticed is in Cambodia, unlike in other places that I work, like Indonesia and the Philippines and so on, here there was two pick, like the very young and the very old, not the very old, but old. And so I thought that if we develop the young one, eventually they will come to replace the older one. So if we do our job properly with the young people, we can actually develop them a lot faster than in other countries where there is a dilution effect in the middle, right? And I thought, at least that was my thought.
Right.
And that's why we spend a lot of our effort working with the young people. And so some of the people that I worked in, say, in 1999, now has become a very senior member of the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and they become a senior member of the UNICEF, UNDP. So that make me happy a little bit. But my job in the organization is an advisor. Yeah, we have a Cambodian director, we have the Cambodian manager, both are women. So my job is to advise, and I'm also the person that developed the curriculum and become a kind of the quality control, if you like.
Okay, so you said it's an NGO.
Yes.
But it is Effective Training Center, effectively.
It is,
right?
yes.
So for a listener who's interested in learning about your curriculum and actually getting trained, how do they go about that?
Well, let me talk first about the focus of our training. Our training basically focus on leadership. So everything to do with leadership, we don't do the hard skill, but I'm hesitate to say that leadership is a soft skill, because soft skill means, leadership is a very tough subject. Right? So anything to do with leadership we do, that's including, the first thing that leader must do is to develop their own character. Like the Chinese philosopher Confucius said, before we can lead a nation, we have to lead our family. But before we lead our family, we have to lead ourselves. So building personal character is very important part of leadership. And then transformational leadership, and then all the kind of practical skill leader must be able to do, including planning, including communication and facilitation skill, including critical and creative thinking, which is usually are not included in this leadership course. But I think as the future coming, in the future, this is what needed mostly. As population increase, resources is going down, we need to be more and more creative, especially the leader in solving problem and solving conflict. So conflict resolution is part of the leadership skill, and bringing people together and making them work together, it's part of that. But we also have most of our training is about 3 to 5 days, but sometimes client asks us to conduct in 2 days, and we can do that.
So you do it for companies?
We do for companies.
So it's a commercial business to some extent?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
In fact, we have trained, we have provided training to many of the private sector banking, including ANZ Bank, Philip Bank, First Finance, Satapana Maruhan Bank, and all that. And also big company like Laurelton Diamonds, and then all the other.
So it's not effectively a school then, it's more of corporate training?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
so you get companies that ask you to do this training.
Yes.
What's in demand now for training? What types of courses do they ask you to do?
Leadership is still one of the thing. Many people would like to have how to transform the company to become more and more effective, more and more responsive to the need of the clients. Another thing that much in demand is how can we motivate our staff, and that is always in demand. My advice, recommendation to our client is that we cannot motivate your staff. But what we need to do is to help your managers to stop demotivating your staff so much.
It's a reverse psychology. Well, let's back up a little bit, because this is to me very interesting, because we could get more of insights into employees in Cambodia and managing employees in Cambodia, which is all tough for us. It's no secret that Cambodia is probably at almost full employment, if not at full employment. We are seeing wage inflation. We're seeing demand for benefits, for sure. And we're seeing just tremendous amount of mobility. There's not a lot of stickability, loyalty to a company. We kind of think in the Western world that you start with a company, and this was maybe the older days, but maybe you stay 20 years or 30 years. I stayed 17 years at a company, and it seems like a lifetime. But that's impossible in Cambodia. It seems to be that very rarely do people stay for any long period of time. If you have somebody for 2 years, you're lucky these days. But most of the CVs you see when you're hiring people, it's I've been here a year, I've been here 9 months, I've been here 15 months. How do we keep people and get some sense of loyalty and family in a company here in Cambodia? Because it's just not happening.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that, because the next training that we're being asked to do is simply that, loyalty and commitment from one organization.
I think I find, we have, the companies that I have, I find people to be actually quite competent and very good at their jobs. I don't experience a lot of, we used to rank people in the West, you have your 10% that are great, fantastic, you have your 70% sort of in the middle, and then you had your 20% at the end, which were poor. But I don't find that's an issue in Cambodia. Most people generally are pretty good. You don't have that lower 20% or that big part of being average.
Right.
So you are getting talent in your company. but they don't want to stay.
Yes,
And the reason that I always tell you is because I want a new experience. I want
Yes.
a new, so how do we say, well, what about career development and staying with your employer?
Yeah.
And maybe someday you could be a manager, or a senior person, or even stock options or a shareholder.
Yeah. I think it's unrealistic to expect people to actually stay with your company when they're also thinking about their families. I always said the most important question people ask is WIF, what's in it for me, right? So we have to be able to address that. And it's difficult to compete in the marketplace where people are willing to pay more than your company.
And that seems to be the biggest problem is this
Yeah.
this wage inflation, which we don't talk about much in Cambodia. It's not headline news, but the fact.
Right.
I'll give you an example. I had somebody 15 months ago that left us. I mean, we pretty much, let's say, doubled the salary in a year that they worked for us. Went and made a double salary somewhere else and came back for another 50% more. And just in a period of 3 years, this happens.
Yeah.
And you 10% raises, a 5% raise is a meaningless.
Yes.
It's a 20% raise or a 40% raise. So how do we manage businesses and keep costs under control and keep employees?
And usually by jumping from one company to another, you actually increase a lot. You know, staying in the company, like you said, is on incremental.
Yeah, you could double your salary.
Can double, and so on. So this is always the $64 million question: is how can you keep in this kind of environment? How can you keep your people with you? In our organization, almost all of them have stuck, for more than 10 years with us. 15 years in that. I always said that you cannot keep them back, except for one thing: relationship. I think the critical thing when people stay with you, it is not because of the money. It's not. Sometimes it is not even because you provided more technical skill, more experience. They can get that anyway. Usually when they stay with you is because they are loyal, because they have good relationship with the management. So my advice always is that manager have to make sure that they have good relationship with all their team.
And that's challenging culturally here.
Yes.
Because certainly it's a very hierarchical society. So when you are in a management position, there's a degree of arrogance in managers here.
Yeah. I think, well, I know this is not popular to say this about leadership, but to me, leadership is all about love, all about service. When you can show that you love your team by not only caring about their work, but caring about their families, caring about what they do. What is your goal? How can I help you to achieve that goal? Yeah, you achieve our company goal, but I'm trying to also help you to achieve your goal. When these two merge, when the company goal and the personal goal merge, you may be able to hold them a bit longer.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. I think again, being a hierarchical society, it's sort of in a sense a class system in a company. That if you're a manager, you're a much higher level. And really, it's human resource management is very new here, and how to develop talent and how to treat employees with benefits and encouragement and motivation. It's all new. So when you're in the right field, there's no doubt about that.
I agree with you in terms of the older generation of Cambodian, that kind of hierarchical, almost patronage system exists. But for many reasons, and one of the reasons probably is what happened during the Pol Pot period, this is not as strong as I've seen probably in Thailand. In Cambodia, this is less so, especially among the younger generation. I have seen very, very kind of...
there's no doubt the younger managers a great degree of humility.
Yes.
And that works really well.
Yeah.
That's why I think the younger entrepreneurs that have companies here, they do have quite loyal people.
Yes.
So it is about humility to some degree.
Right. Yeah.
A little more of a flat organization.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest lessons that I learned I think it called from the book called Leadership Jazz or something like that, is that we have to make ourselves vulnerable to the power of our team.
Let's talk about some of the people you come across. This training is becoming a booming industry here, and for good reason. I guess what we're talking about is companies trying to be competitive and also to develop their talent. But when you sort of talk about leadership and taking charge and being enabled to Cambodians, again, some of this must be relatively new. How are they embracing it, or is it a foreign concept? How do you get them on board?
They're embracing it for sure. We already trained more than 300,000 people here in Cambodia alone. Now more and more of our training is required in Myanmar, in Thailand, in Laos, and lately I just completed 2 training in Indonesia for ASEAN Secretariat. So these are all the same, where there is this problem of hierarchy. They're embracing it. The way we do it is, whenever possible, we actually encourage everybody to learn together. In other words, sometimes organizations say, oh, we would like you to train the manager first and then we train the staff first. I said, no, if possible, why don't we mix it so that they understood each other. They're on the same page, as you like. And that will help a lot, because by understanding that, hey, my manager actually know what we're talking about, they're less likely to be able to hide behind information, if you like. So they know each other.
Okay. So besides leadership, what other areas do you focus on?
We focus on education. We focus on parenting. I love doing parenting, because to me this is kind of a softer part of leadership. Parent actually CEO. I always said, as a father, a mother, sometimes you have to act like a CEO, you're chief executive in your family.
So this is outside corporate training.
We do private training, but sometimes university also invite us to conduct training on parenting, for example, for the academe. Can I just say something? In all these things, in parenting, in the education, like we teach teachers and we teach probably cooperation, there is one theme that runs. That I believe the greatest model we can use to develop our organization is the universe itself. The universe is probably by far the only sustainable thing I know, right? And the universe becomes sustainable because it obeys certain principles. If I may, there are 5 principles. Everything in the universe, the forest, the ocean, including a nation and corporation, must continue to improve, continue to change. Number 1 is change. Number 2, differentiation. We must not discriminate. We must we must embrace differentiation. So managers must be able to listen to the staff of different ideas. There must not be discrimination, including like a toilet for managers and toilet for staff and things like that. And the other thing is unity, that all the different part of a system, like in cooperation, people have different skill, different salary level. They must work together as one. And that's the most important thing, because the system is defined by the unity, oneness. But so to protect this oneness, the number 4 principle is self-regulation. That everybody from CEO down to security guard must be disciplined. They must self-regulate their behavior, because if this is not happening, the system will break apart. And including that is accountability, transparency, right? I also would like to add that in this self-regulation, we also now have to start focusing on our relationship with the earth, with the environment. Right? And so if we can do this 4, continue changing, differentiating, unity, and self-regulation. If we can do this well, we can now do number 5, which is expansion. All system, from the forest to the tree, from the trees to the forest to the ocean, must continue to becoming more. In business, we call it probably franchising, or expanding to different part of the world. But we need to be able to do this 4 first before we can do number 5. That's where the greatest profit come from, number 5. And so, whether it is parenting, whether it is teaching the high school or primary school, whether we as CEO, if we obey this 5 principle, the organization or the system will grow. And if we don't, it will collapse.
Well, thank you for that. It's great. It's a great philosophy. And I thank you for coming on the show. We always have that last question we ask, which is, what do you love about Cambodia, and what would you like to see improve?
I love Cambodia about the people, right? What I like to see improve, I like to see the young people starting to become more and more active in taking a leadership role. And one of the most important leadership is about responsibility. So I think my passion is about the earth, the environment. So I would like young people as a leader to take more and more control, take more responsible about healing the earth, starting with Cambodia first and then the rest of the world.
That's great. Climate change, we have to really address that. It's our children's future, our grandchildren's future.
Definitely.
So. Well, thank you very much for being on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.